you've been pushing, trying harder, fixing harder, controlling harder. And somehow, the more effort you put in, the worse you feel. You try to get your life together, but you feel more scattered. You try to force clarity, but your mind goes louder. You try to become better, calmer, more spiritual, and instead of freedom, you get tension. Because at some point, trying stops being movement and starts becoming resistance. What if the reason nothing is clicking is not because you haven't tried enough, but because the one who keeps trying is the very thing keeping you trapped? In this video, we're going to talk about why trying so hard can quietly become the very reason you stay stuck. Not because effort is bad, not because action is wrong, but because there's a kind of effort that comes from fear, separation, and internal pressure. And that kind of trying does not create peace. It creates friction. This is for the person who feels exhausted from always attempting to fix themselves. For the one who keeps reaching for the next answer, the next habit, the next breakthrough, the next technique, hoping this one will finally make them feel okay. But the deeper truth is this: when trying comes from the belief that you are not enough as you are, it doesn't lead you back to yourself. It pulls you further away. And once you see that clearly, something begins to soften. Not into laziness, not into passivity, but into alignment, into honesty, into a different way of being. Most people think trying hard means they care, and sometimes that's true. But a lot of the time, trying hard is not devotion. It's fear in motion. Fear of failing, fear of falling behind, fear of being judged, fear of wasting your life, fear of not becoming who you think you're supposed to be. So you push. You tighten up inside. You monitor yourself constantly. You judge every delay. You panic when things don't move fast enough. You turn your life into a project that always needs correction. And from the outside, it can look productive. But internally, it feels like war. Because when fear is driving the effort, nothing is ever enough. No amount of progress satisfies it. No amount of achievement quiets it. No moment of peace lasts long enough, because the mind immediately creates another problem to solve. That's why some of the most driven people are also the most exhausted. They're not just moving forward. They're running from themselves. And the tragedy is, they often don't even realize it. They call it ambition. They call it growth. They call it discipline. But underneath it, there is often a silent belief. I can't relax until I become someone else. That belief is poison, because it means your life is no longer being lived. It is being managed through tension. The mind loves pressure. It believes pressure gets results. It believes harshness creates improvement. It believes if it stays on your neck long enough, you will finally become worthy. So it keeps pushing. do more, be better. You should already know this. You should not still be struggling. And after a while, you stop hearing those thoughts as thoughts, and you hear them as truth. So now even your healing becomes stressful. Your spirituality becomes performative. Your self-awareness becomes another arena for self-judgment. You are no longer trying to understand your life. You are trying to outrun your discomfort. But pressure does not create real transformation. Pressure creates survival. And survival can mimic progress for a while. It can make you hustle. It can make you perform. It can make you look sharp and focused and driven. But deep down, survival is not peace. It's contraction. Real transformation does not happen when you are constantly forcing yourself into a shape. It happens when something false begins to loosen. When you stop feeding the inner violence. When you stop treating your own consciousness like an enemy that needs to be conquered. Because the truth is, you cannot pressure yourself into wholeness. You can only exhaust yourself trying. Here is the deeper problem. Trying hard backfires when it comes from the assumption that you are separate from what you seek. Separate from peace. Separate from clarity. Separate from rest. Separate from truth. Separate from the stillness underneath all of the noise. That's the illusion. Because once you believe the answer is somewhere else, the entire structure of your effort becomes distorted. Now you're reaching. You're grasping. You're chasing. You're forcing. And the more you force, the less you can feel what is already here. This is where the monad enters the picture. The monad is not a reward at the end of striving. It is not the final state you earn after enough effort. It is what remains when the false movement of separation begins to fall apart. It is the quiet presence that was here before the trying, during the trying, and after the trying. But the mind cannot recognize this, because the mind is built on movement. It wants becoming. It wants progress. It wants the feeling of, I am getting somewhere. The monad is not somewhere. It is what is here before the chase begins. So the more frantically you seek it, the more you stay identified with the seeker. And the seeker is the tension. This shows up everywhere. It shows up when you wake up already anxious because you feel behind before the day even begins. It shows up when you sit down to rest, but you cannot actually rest because your mind keeps telling you that you should be doing something more useful. It shows up when you keep consuming content, hoping one more piece of information will finally make you feel settled. It shows up when you keep replaying conversations, trying to say the perfect thing, become the perfect person, make the perfect move. It shows up when you turn your inner life into a constant improvement plan. Even in relationships, this happens. You try harder to be loved. You try harder to be understood. You try harder to hold everything together. You try harder not to lose someone. And the more desperate the energy becomes, the more unnatural everything feels. Because trying, when rooted in fear, does not create intimacy. It creates pressure. And people can feel that pressure. You can feel that pressure. The same is true in spiritual life. The harder you try to get there, the more artificial your path becomes. Because now you're not present. You're performing awakening, performing surrender, performing peace. And that's why it backfires. Because what is real does not emerge through force. It emerges when the false effort is finally seen for what it is. So what's the shift? It is not giving up on your life. It is not becoming passive. It is not refusing action. It is not pretending effort has no place. The shift is much more honest than that. It is learning to notice the inner resistance hidden inside your effort. It is seeing when your action is clean and when it is contaminated by panic, self-rejection, or inner violence. You can still work, still build, still show up, still make decisions. You can still change your life. But now, the movement comes from a different place. Not from I must become worthy. Not from I have to force this or I'll fall apart. And not from I need to fix myself so I can finally be at peace. But from clarity, from groundedness, from the recognition that your deepest nature is not lacking. And when that recognition begins to dawn, effort changes. It becomes simpler, cleaner, less dramatic, less desperate. You stop gripping everything so tightly. You act because action is needed, not because your identity depends on the result. You rest without guilt. You move without panic. You let things unfold without constantly inserting fear into every moment. That's not weakness. That's power without distortion. That is movement without self-violence. That is what happens when the false center starts to loosen, and the deeper reality underneath begins to live through you. If you've been trying hard for a long time, this may hit deeper than you expected. Because effort has probably become part of your identity. It may even feel unsafe to loosen your grip. But that's exactly why this matters. Because the peace you want will never be found through inner aggression. The more you attack yourself in the name of growth, the more divided you become. The more you chase peace as if it were elsewhere, the more you overlook the quiet reality that's already here. The monad is not something your effort creates. It is what remains when the noise of striving no longer defines you. And that doesn't mean your life stops. It means your life stops being driven by false tension. So if you've been wondering why trying so hard keeps backfiring, look closely. It may not be that you needed a better strategy. It may be that the one straining so hard is built from the very illusion that keeps you suffering. And the moment you truly see that, something softens. Something opens. Not because you earned it, but because it was never absent. If this journey spoke to you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone ready to experience life beyond thought. Comment below. Have you noticed how forcing things in your life only creates more tension? I read every comment. If you would like to support my work directly, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/magnumopus333. Or you can explore some original merchandise at my Teespring store online. The link is in the description below. Remember, your consciousness is the key that unlocks reality. Let's keep unlocking it together. Thank you for watching. Until next time.